My doctors told my husband and I that our baby won't be normal, so I want to terminate the pregnancy, but my husband isn't letting me, and I don't know what to do. Original poster, u/thrower doom. This was a planned baby, and I'm absolutely devastated. My doctors told my husband, 30 meters, and I, 31 feet, that our baby has many birth defects. I want to cancel, he does not. My husband and I met in college and have been married for 6 years now. We have one son who is now 4 years old. I know some people are going to wonder, but yes, we did discuss our moral and political views before even getting engaged, and we're both pro-choice. When we were 21 and 20, we made a mistake that ended in a pregnancy. We were both flat broke and not at all ready for kids. I decided to terminate, and he fully agreed with and supported me. He loves our son so much and is an amazing father. He confided in me that he loved the idea of having a daughter as well. Fortunately, we're in a good financial place, so I agreed and we started trying for a second baby. We conceived fairly quickly and were overjoyed. We also soon discovered that we're having a girl. My husband was so excited. As soon as he was told, he went all out and started to plan her nursery. He asked our son to help him choose which shade of pink he wanted, which crib to get, what the theme should be, etc. It was also adorable. I don't want to reveal any personal medical history, so forgive me for being vague with the descriptions. At our last doctor's visit a few days ago, we were given the news that our daughter has severe birth defects. They think that she could possibly survive the birth, but any life that she experiences will be painful for her. There have been medical cases of babies with the same conditions who survive from early childhood to, in rare cases, even their teenage years. These poor children suffer so much pain and discomfort throughout their lives. They are very low functioning and need round-the-clock care, as well as several uncomfortable surgeries to try and give them a better quality of life. We were both heartbroken and cried for hours together in the car. Then we drove home in silence. Neither of us said anything until my husband began to quietly mumble his thoughts. He was going on and on about how we needed to schedule another doctor's appointment so we'd know what medical equipment we'd need to buy for her, and that we should renovate the nursery so we could care for her more easily. He said that he'd definitely have to talk to his boss so he could take a longer paternity leave. He wants to be by her side in the NICU until we can take her home. He talked about how we'd have to ask his mom to babysit our son more often while she's a newborn. He even said that maybe we could sell one of our cars, move to a smaller house, and take our son out of private school so we'd have more money to pay for our daughter's care. I was silent until he asked me what I thought. I was blunt and said that I think we should terminate the pregnancy. Now, I feel bad for saying it that way, but I was still frazzled from the news. This made him very upset. He began to cry and ask why I don't want our daughter, even with disabilities. I mentioned our previous abortion. He said it was different because it was unplanned and we had no way to take care of a child. Now, we're in a pretty good place financially, so theoretically, we could shoulder the cost of our daughter. I have a bit of personal history with this type of situation. My best friend in high school was at my house all the time because her parents were too busy with her severely autistic older brother. They did love her, but she was pushed to the side her entire childhood. I told him this story. He said that we'd do better by our son and daughter. He called my best friend's parents stupid for having a second child after they already had a disabled one. Then he seemed hopeful for a minute and asked if I was just afraid. He promised that he'd be by my side the whole time and that we could do this together. I told him it's not about fear. Our daughter will be in pain constantly if she's born alive. It would be a short and painful life for her. I love this baby so much already, I don't want her to suffer like that. He began to yell that even if she doesn't live long, we could still pour our hearts and souls into making her life as fulfilling as possible. I didn't respond, and he stormed inside. It's been a couple of days now, and he won't even look me in the eyes. He sits in the new nursery for hours. Our son is very confused. I know he's grieving, but I really don't want to go further with this pregnancy. I love him so much, I have no idea what to do now. Relevant comments. My daughter has a 20-year-old autistic and bipolar daughter, my granddaughter. There are 3 daughters in total, one older and one younger. The autistic child cannot self-entertain and will always have the mentality of a 6-year-old child. My daughter's marriage fell apart, and the ex-husband wasn't around to take any responsibility. Plus, my daughter was rarely reimbursed for medical and dental out-of-pocket expenses. The oldest daughter, the glass child, was parentified so her mother could work nights. She has now gone no contact with her mother and blocked her everywhere due to her childhood losses. The younger child has lived in the shadow of her autistic sister and has many issues going on. My daughter can't leave the 2 of them at home because the older sister becomes violent. When toddlers, the youngest had to have her hair cut short because her autistic sister would pull her long hair out by the roots, leaving her scalp injured. It was awful. My daughter is beautiful, But men who have professed their love for her have wanted to marry her, but not to take on her disabled daughter. My autistic granddaughter cannot self-entertain and is a Velcro person, so she is always there. It's been a family tragedy. My daughter is a prisoner in her own home. My ex-husband would not help. I worked full-time and went to school at night, so I was pretty much depleted. Plus, my autistic granddaughter is hard to keep. I love my granddaughter, but I would not wish her life or my daughter's life on my worst enemy. It hurts me to say this, but it would be a mercy to not bring this severely disabled child into the world. What a cruel thing to bring this unborn child into the world. The husband is out of his mind with grief and cannot see the whole picture. The wife needs to make up her own mind, even if that means making the sad choice to divorce. To the haters out there, unless you have walked in another person's shoes, you cannot understand this catastrophic situation. Update. Thank you all so much for the advice and kind words. I've read through them all. The empathy and compassion shown is truly touching. After I made my original post, my husband and I rushed to get a second opinion. Nothing changed, and it was still our original diagnosis. Once I learned that, I scheduled the termination for as soon as physically possible. I didn't tell my husband at first. He kept raving about how we could give her as much love in her life as we can. I feel bad for this now, but I snapped and angrily told him I was terminating the pregnancy, that I know how he feels, but I will not allow my daughter to suffer just because he wants to love her. He was very angry with me after I put my foot down. After he realized his pleading wouldn't change my mind, he didn't speak a word to me. It was like he refused to even acknowledge my existence. I was terrified that he'd go and leave me all alone with the scraps of our family. I tried to explain it to my son, but I think he still doesn't understand. Then, the night before the procedure, he stepped into my room, apologized for everything, and promised to be more supportive of me from now on. I was so happy and relieved I started to sob, and he held me all night. My original plan was for my mom to drive me to the hospital, and then, once it was done, a close friend would take me home. Since it was only the night before, he said he couldn't miss a full day of work but really wanted to drive me home. I agreed to let him, and the procedure was done in the morning. My son is having a long sleepover with my best friend's family. I don't want him to see me like this. The next morning, the termination was done. It went fine, with only minor physical pain, but the emotional toll was crushing. Afterward, he didn't show up to get me. I waited for hours, and he wouldn't answer any of my calls. I ended up having to call a friend out from work to take me home. When we got there, I saw just one note on the counter saying he couldn't do this. A few of our daughter's special toys were removed from her nursery. My entire life has fallen apart in a matter of days. I asked my mom to watch my son for a little while. I still can't contact my husband. Everything feels so pointless. Relevant comments. I'm a doctor, and I work in the ICU, where I see children exactly like the one you may have had. If I were in your shoes, I'd make the same choice. I know you feel broken, but I assure you that you've made the right decision for your daughter. She's at peace now and will never feel the horrible pains that would have awaited her had she been born.